Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger.
Well, good morning, church. How's everybody doing? Good. You know, I love this book, Mortimer's Christmas Manger. It is like my favorite Christmas book, and really it was my kids when they were younger, but really I just liked it a lot, right? And so it is a story that reminds me of what actually happened as revealed in the scriptures. But what I thought I'd do this morning is have a little story time with Phil. How's that sound? Yeah, if you're not excited, we're still doing it. So nestle in, okay, cuddle up, and here we go. We're going to do a little story time. And so this story tells about a little mouse that named Mortimer. And I'll introduce him with you. We'll put a little something up on the screen so you can follow along, but it goes a little something like this. In a great big house lived a wee mouse named Mortimer. He dwelled in a dark hole under the stairs. Don't worry, this is going somewhere. And nobody ever noticed little Mortimer, and Mortimer liked it that way, but he didn't like his hole. It was too cold, too cramped, too creepy, squeaked Mortimer. And so each day he snuck out and crept about looking for crumbs and tidbits until one day Mortimer spied something wonderful. And what he spied was wonderful. He saw a huge tree covered in twinkling lights. And nestled on top was a bright, shining star, but something even better than the tree itself sat next to it on a table. Mortimer sighed with delight, a house just my size. But the house was so high and Mortimer so low, I'll climb up on the tree, he said, and made a perfect ladder for a mouse. And up, Mortimer climbed, and down, crashed to the ornaments. And finally, he reached the table. And perfect, said Mortimer. Not cold, not cramped, not creepy. Perfect, it's cozy. But who are you? Mortimer asked. Mortimer had never seen people so small, almost as small as himself. And he had never seen such strange animals either. Tap, 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 Mortimer knocked, but no one answered. Tap, 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 no one moved an inch. Oh, I see, Mortimer squeaked. You aren't real, you're only statues. And so Mortimer lugged and Mortimer tugged, and one by one he dragged the statues out. And when he reached the smallest statue, he saw it was a baby. A baby in a wooden bed, just Mortimer's size. There's no room for you here, Mortimer said. Out you go. And then into bed crawled Mortimer, and he fell fast asleep in the soft, warm hay. And the next day, as Mortimer crept about, he found good things to eat, cookie crumbs, fruitcake morsels, and spicy peppermint candies. And when Mortimer scampered back up to his new home, the statues were set up again. The nerve, right? No, squeaked Mortimer. This won't do. There's no room for me. And so Mortimer lugged and Mortimer tugged and all the statues were out. And stay out, Mortimer said. And then he fell into bed, fast asleep in the soft, warm hay. Each day, Mortimer scurried about and the statues were set up again. And Mortimer lugged and always tugged and them back out. And then one day, Mortimer set out and saw the people gathered around the tree. He couldn't go out there, and so he hid among the statues. And a man started talking, and Mortimer listened. And what he heard was wonderful. Since it's Christmas Eve, the father said, I shall tell the Christmas story. A long time ago in a little town called Bethlehem, like we just sang about, Mortimer heard about people named Joseph and Mary and a bright shining star, and he heard about shepherds watching their flocks by night and traveling wise men. And the man continued, and there was no room for them in the inn. And then Mortimer heard about a baby was born in a stable and had no real bed, but slept in a wooden manger, a baby born to save the world, and his name shall be Jesus, the man said. And Mortimer looked at the bright shining star, on the tree. He looked at his new home on his new bed. And he looked at the statues. And last of all, he looked at the baby. I see, sighed Mortimer. You aren't just any statue. You are a statue of Jesus. And so Mortimer sniffled and he snuffled. And a tear rolled down his furry cheek. And there was no room for you in the inn, but I know where there is room. And so Mortimer lugged and Mortimer tugged, and soon he dragged all the statues back to where they belong. And last of all, he put the baby back in the manger. This belongs to you, he said. And Mortimer smiled. He said, you look warm and cozy now. See, there was no place for Mortimer now to go except back to the cold, cramped, creepy hole. And so he prayed, Jesus, you were born to save the world. Perhaps you could also bring a little home for me. And then Mortimer spied something wonderful. And he saw a house, another house, just his size. A little gingerbread house. Which, if I'm to pick one, I would probably go that route too. But I love this story because it tells and reminds us of what happened in the Christmas story, right? And you know the story of how Joseph and Mary, they traveled to Bethlehem. And as they get to Bethlehem, it's the busiest time of year and they come into town. Oh, we're starting again. And they come into town. And of course, everything's busy. It's like traveling Thanksgiving weekend. All the hotels are booked. And so Joseph and Mary, they go around the town into every home of family members they plan to stay with, or every inn where they might have found a room to stay. And all they see are no vacancy signs glowing and the shaking heads of innkeepers behind the check-in counter saying, sorry, there's no room for you here. Just like Mortimer said to Jesus before he understood, right? There's no room for you here. And you know the story of how they go around and this is all they find. There's no room until finally one man and woman, their family says, actually, I do have a space for you though. Out back, there's this cave where we put all the animals and maybe you can find a comfy place there. And so with the night coming closer and the contractions coming closer together and the cold sweeping in, this is all they had for themselves. And they give birth, Mary gives birth to this son named Jesus, there in a stable for animals, and lays him in a manger, not the size of a mouse, but to feed animals. This is the story that we've all heard. And what I know about this story, what I see in this story is that when they hear those words, there's no room for you here, it's not just about the guest rooms being full. What it is it's telling us that for so many, when Jesus came, there was really no room in their hearts to let Jesus in and open up to who he was, to sweep in and to revolutionize their lives. That's what we often miss when we sing about this silent night, this holy night, is that many didn't have room in their hearts for Jesus. So what we're going to do this morning is we're going to open up the scriptures. Matthew chapter 2 is where we're going to be. If you got a Bible, open it up. If you didn't bring it with you, bring it next week. We're going to open up the scriptures every single Sunday. Matthew chapter 2 tells a story of a couple of characters in the Christmas story, and it's this contrast between some who would open their hearts and say, there's room for you here, come in and rule in my heart and in my life, and others who would say, there's no room for you here, just as Mortimer said. So we're going to pick it up, Matthew 2, verse 1. Read with me. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. Now pause here for a second. Before we keep going and we find out what question they asked, pause here for a second because I want you to notice something. Right here in this verse, it gives us the name Jesus. It gives us the city, the town of Bethlehem in Judea, this region. This king named Herod, these magi from the east who come to a city, the holy city of Jerusalem. What they're doing right here, what Matthew is doing is he's telling the story to root Jesus' birth in real space, time, history. Some of us come here today, or we're watching online, and we like this Christmas story because it makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. And it's a nice myth that we tell every year in December, right? And that's your mindset. But what you got to recognize is that this is no myth. This is no feel-good story. This really happened. And there is no reputable historian who denies the birth of a man named Jesus. So the question today is not, what does Christmas mean to you? The question today is, who is this Jesus who was really born in space-time history? And how does he impact and change your life still today? That's the question we have to look at. We can't breeze through this story and say, well, that sounds nice. No, this is a true story that is still changing the world and changing hearts and lives today. And so after Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in Judea, during the time of King Herod, remember that name, we're going to need it in a minute. Magi, remember those Magi, we're going to need them in a minute, from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? And we saw his star when it rose, and we've come to worship him. And when King Herod heard this, he was, what's that word? Disturbed. He was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. You guys know that cliche that when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody in the home happy? Right? Well, when Herod ain't happy, ain't nobody in Jerusalem happy. He's disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him, because he's told about this newborn king that is come to save the world. And he's like, I don't know how to make sense of this, because he is the reigning king of the Jews. That was his title, as king of the Jews. And he was a mighty king. He was a great builder. And he was more full of himself than you can imagine. And see, he built great cities. He built, retrofitted that temple there in Jerusalem. But he built Sebaste, this city, Caesarea on the sea, which if you've ever have a chance to visit the Holy Land and go to Caesarea, man, it is a beautiful location. And in these 10 years, he built Caesarea, this city. He built this palace for his family, and then he built a palace for himself. Give up, men, on the man cave idea. Let's go man palace. Are you with me? That's what Herod did, right? Man palace. Like, he had his own. And after 10 years of building this city, he threw invitations out there and invited people from all over the place. We learned from the Roman historian Josephus that he hosted these games and races and contests of near Olympic proportion. From all over the world, great people sent gifts, ambassadors and magi, wise men, astrologers from the courts of kings came to celebrate Herod. And they came from all over. He wasn't the greatest king in the Roman Empire, not by any stretch, but he wanted to act like it. And so he throws these games, and then one day, some months, maybe years later, some magi come into town, some wise men from another king's court. Only this time, they're talking about a newborn king of the Jews that they came to celebrate. Only this time, Herod didn't send the invitation. Only this time, there are no games for which they should be showing up for. So why would they be here? And what's a king to do when they come asking questions about a newborn king? This is why Herod is disturbed, because he is the king of the Jews. And if there's a newborn king of the Jews, what does that mean for a king? It means, might be a threat to your throne, right? So he's disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. And so watch what he does. Verse 4, really maybe shrewd move on his part. He says, when he called together all the chief priests and all the teachers of the law, all the religious folk who knew the scripture, knew the prophecies of this coming king, and he asked them, where is the Messiah to be born? And they said, in Bethlehem, in Judea. And they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. And he brings up this scripture from of old. He says, but you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people, Israel. So his religious advisors, they come in. And they say, well, the Messiah is to be born in Bethlehem. You know that podunk town about 5 miles south of here? That's their answer. He says that's where this Messiah is to be born. And then he goes on, verse 7. And Herod responds. He calls the Magi, these wise men, secretly. And he found out from them the exact time the star had appeared in the sky. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child. For as soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him. Now, we all know that that's not truly his intention, right? We find out in verse 13 that's not really his intention. His intention is to kill this newborn king, right? Because if you're the king of the Jews and a new Savior king has been born, that means he's a threat and you got to eliminate that threat. And so he's disturbed. He's troubled. He's angry. He's even murderous in this intent because the writing is on the wall. And what we find out as we continue reading is that he doesn't want to go and worship this newborn king. He wants to off him so he can keep on getting the worship and the acclaim as the one true king of the Jews. And that's sure enough what happens. And when Herod realizes that he's been outsmarted by these magi who don't end up coming back and reporting to him, or shooting him a text to say, hey, guys down here. When he finds out he's outsmarted, what does he do? He sends this murder order out for every newborn baby, every baby boy under 2 years old. And this goes out, and you have to see just how disturbed Herod was in more ways than one. Herod's a madman. And he will do anything, really anything, to hold on to power and control in his life. He was so crazy that Herod actually killed one of his wives and multiple sons because he thought they posed a threat to his throne. One of them just 5 days before he died. This is how crazy this guy is. And so he's eliminating anybody that he thinks might be a threat. People would often say of Herod that it was better to be a dog in Herod's household than a son because of that reason, right? Imagine that being said of you. This is the man we're dealing with. For Herod, there is no room for another king, no need for a savior, no yielding of control. And I wonder, does that sound familiar to anybody here? Maybe you've already checked out of the sermon and you've thought, there's nothing for me here. Because you have zero interest in Jesus coming in and taking residence in your life. Maybe you're here and you've always thought that Jesus is just a crutch for the weak and the gullible who believe in stuff like that. Maybe you're here and you'd say that you're thinking, well, I'm no Herod, but maybe you're a Mortimer who says, no, there's no room for you here. I'm going to lead my life the way I want to lead my life. And I'm going to make the decisions I want to make. I don't need to believe in this because it doesn't do anything for me, and you think you're just fine on your own. Could it be that you're missing the only hope of salvation because of your pride? Could it be that you're missing your only hope of salvation because you're seizing to and grabbing hold of and clinging to any semblance, any illusion of control in your life, and you're missing the one true offer of salvation and life that is open to you? That's Herod. Herod's not the only character here, though. We see, in contrast to Herod, we see these magi, these wise men who come, right? And we sing songs about these wise men. We sing about the 3 kings, and we don't really know how many there were. It was probably a bigger group than 3, but we say it was 3 because they had gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So everybody brought a gift, right? You got to bring a gift to a party. So it's probably, bigger than that, and we don't know exactly where they were from, but somewhere in the east, Babylon, Persia, somewhere out there. And so they come to worship this newborn king. And what we know about these magi, these wise men, is that they were not God-fearing people. These are astrologers who would serve in king's courts and tell them, prophecies, and they were supposed to know things and study the stars and things like that. If we put it in today's terms, these aren't the religious folks. These aren't the pastors. These aren't the culture leaders. These are like the horoscope writers and the palm readers of that day. That's who these people are. And so you would expect that the Jewish religious authorities would be catching the fact that the Messiah is here. And yet they miss it, and these pagan astrologers catch it. Somehow, they know that this is no ordinary king, and so they travel from Babylon or Persia, somewhere hundreds of miles east, all the way to Jerusalem to worship this king. And they come to the palace. Why? Because where's a king going to be born, right? Obviously in a palace. And so they go to the palace of Herod and they ask the question, and as it turns out, this king wasn't born in a palace. He was born in a stable nearby. And so they ask Herod, and Herod sends them out to go and do a scouting mission down to Bethlehem, a few miles away, and be guided by the star the rest of the way. We pick up the story, verse 9. After these magi had heard the king's instruction, They went on their way, and the star that they had seen, when it rose, it went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. Elon wasn't the original with Starlink. This is like the original Starlink right here, right? And so they followed the star, and they stopped where the child was. And when they saw the star, they were overjoyed. Make a note of that, overjoyed. So Herod is what? Disturbed. He's troubled, he's angry, he's murderous, and these magi, these wise men are what? They're overjoyed, they're exuberant. They're overcome, and they bow down and they worship this Jesus. Read on with me, verse 11. On coming to the house, so notice they're in a house now. And they see the child Jesus. So I hate to break it to you, your nativity scene with 3 wise men at the stable probably isn't quite historically accurate. I'm not saying you got to go home and change it. Okay? It's okay. It's okay. You can be unbiblical. I'm totally kidding. We have it up in our house. I'm joking. On coming to the house, they saw the star with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. And then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to crazy old King Herod, disturbed in the head King Herod, they returned to the country by another route. You see, this picture of the Magi is just so beautiful, isn't it? And just get this picture of these wise men bowing before this little baby Jesus. What would it look like for them to be overjoyed? I mean, when I picture it, and I listen to this language in Matthew chapter 2, I'm picturing like ecstatic. You know, I'm picturing Buddy the Elf when Santa's coming to Gimbals, like, I know him, kind of ecstatic. Are you with me? Like, that's these wise men, like, I know him, right? That's what's going on right here. They're overjoyed. The way it's put in the ESV, if you have that version, is it says that they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. In fact, they're so overjoyed that they don't just bring gifts, they bow down and worship him. We get so proud of the gifts that we're bringing. We're like, oh man, I got my friend, I got my family this gift that was on their list. I did a great job in my shopping this year, and I got it done early, right? These men traveled hundreds of miles, would spare stop at no expense to get there to see this Jesus, to bow down before him, to bring these expensive gifts. And so their love for Jesus boiled up in worship and in giving. That's what it looks like for them. So they come. And they worship him, this newborn king. What a contrast here. King Herod is troubled, he's disturbed, he's angry, even murderous. Will stop at nothing to stop Jesus coming in. And then you have these wise men who are overjoyed, who are worshiping this newborn king. You'd figure it's the kings and the priests who would catch him, who would see Jesus coming. But it's not the kings and the priests. Instead, it's the heathen stargazers who pursue him with reckless abandon. Even that night when he was born, the Jewish innkeepers, they all said, even though they were expecting the Messiah someday, they all said, like Mortimer, sorry, there's no room for you here. But it was those lowly, despised, rejected shepherds who make the journey into town to go and bow before this newborn king. See, the Christmas story flips everything we think we know upside down. And everything's backwards. It's beautiful. The proud and the pious, they miss God's appearing, while the humble and the heathen are the ones who meet God's Messiah. That's the invitation of Christmas. What a contrast. And here's the beautiful part that grabs me every single time, is that some 2,000 years later, we're still confronted with the same question, aren't we? It's the same story for us. Same question for us. So my question for you today is the same question that confronted Herod, that confronted the Magi, that confronted Mortimer. Is there room in your heart for Jesus today? Is there room in your life for Jesus today? Will you yield control? Will you submit? Will you surrender? Will you put him first and at the center of your life? This is the question to every single one of us that's posed to us in the Christmas story. Now, I know every December we come and we recite the story and we say, well, I've heard it so many times before, it's just kind of old hat to me. And it's so easy to start thinking there's nothing new for me because I've been walking with Jesus for a lot of years. I've been preaching Jesus for a lot of years. There's nothing new for me to get from this story. But my friend, if that's where you're at today, you are missing it. Because I'll speak for myself. I need to constantly come back to preach this gospel to myself and to reorient my life around Jesus and to put him at the center of my life. It is so easy for me to get knocked off course. And I don't think I'm the only one here. And so don't write off the story as something you've heard it all before. This is the invitation to every single one of us. Will you make room in your heart, in your life for Jesus today? See, this is the gospel. It's that God created you and he loves you. And he created you in his image. And yet we're broken and we're sinful. And that beautiful unity that we had with God, that relationship that we had with God was broken because of our sin, because of our rebellion, because of us pushing him out and lugging and tugging Jesus out of our lives and out of at least the center of our lives and saying, I'm going to do it my own way. And every single one of us have done that. Look at your life. And if you're honest with yourself, you know that you haven't done it all right. And that there are things you're disappointed in, things you're ashamed of, things you wish were different. And this sets us apart from this holy and perfect God. And God could have left us there, but his love for us is too big for that. And so what does God do? He sends his son, Jesus, to take on human flesh, to come here and to be born as a human baby. And we call that event in history, we call it Christmas. But Jesus didn't stay as that little 6-pound, 8-ounce baby Jesus. He grew and he lived a perfect life because you and I never could have. We look at our lives and we recognize, nope, I'm broken, I'm fallen, I'm sinful, I've messed up. And so he lived this perfect life because we never could. And he restored to us that honor before God that was broken by our sin and our shame. And then Jesus goes to the cross. And you may remember that part of the story. He goes to the cross, this crucifixion, this gruesome crucifixion. Why? To pay the punishment for our sin, our death that we rightfully deserve because of our rebellion against him. Because we'd lugged and tugged him out of our lives. And so he goes to the cross for us, but what does he do then? He rises back from the grave, restoring life and salvation and opening the door for anyone and everyone who would come to know him. That is the invitation to us today at Christmas. 3 days later, he rose again to new life. My friends, this is not a once upon a time story. This is a historical story that changes everything for us today. And so Jesus, you want to talk about home for Christmas, Jesus says later on, Revelation chapter 3, he says, here I am, I stand at the door and I knock. Like, picture Jesus standing in front of your door. And the prettiest sight to see is the holly that will be on your own front door, right? And Jesus stands in front of the holly that will be on your own front door and he knocks and he says, here I am, I stand at the door and knock. And if anyone would open the door, hear my voice, open the door, I'll come in and I'll eat with you. I'll reside with you and you with me. Jesus is inviting himself in to make his home in your heart, to make his home in your life, to revolutionize everything you thought you knew and to make you new. This is the invitation of Jesus. Not the little sweet, little cuddly Jesus all wrapped up and swaddled. No, this is the death-conquering, forever reigning King Jesus that brings that offer to you here and now today. This is the offer of life and hope today. And some of us are here and we're hurting today. And Christmas is a blue Christmas. It's not a white Christmas. Some of us are grieving and we're lonely and we're struggling. We're in the depths of depression. And some of us are feeling like we're doing just fine on our own. And Christmas is welcomed because it's kind of cheery, but I'm doing just fine. I don't really need Jesus. Wherever you're at today, on any edge of the spectrum, my hope and my prayer is that you would wide open your heart and life to Jesus Christ, to come in, to live and reside and revolutionize everything that you thought you called home, everything that you thought you knew. everything that you believed was true, that you would take it from Jesus. And if you're here and you haven't yet made room for Jesus in your heart and life, then I've got an invitation for you. I would challenge you, don't leave here today without taking a step into a relationship with Jesus Christ. Norma showed you earlier how those tap tags work. If you're in the front row, sorry about that. But if you're in every other seat, just tap that black square, that little tap tag on the seat in front of you, and it'll open up, and just click that button that says, I'm making room for Jesus today. Maybe you'd say, I don't even have all my questions answered. I still have some things I need to really work out before I surrender my life to Jesus. Still, just fill that out. Just type in your name, your number. I'll follow up with you. We would love to help you understand who Jesus is and open your life to him. If you're watching online and joining us today, then I would just invite you, contact the church. We'd love to walk with you into a relationship with Jesus and answer the questions that you have. But maybe you're here, and maybe you'd say, well, I've been following Jesus for a long time. But does he have free reign of your home? Does he have free reign of your heart? Does he live to control and be truly king of your life? Do you bow down like these, joyfully bow down like these magi before him? See, one of the reasons I think I love this book about Mortimer here is that I'm so much like him. I don't know, maybe you resonate too. I'm so much like him because I can so quickly move Jesus to the side of my life and start to live the way I want to live instead of letting him call the shots for me. And if that's where you're at today, my challenge to you as well is the same thing. Make room in your heart for Jesus Christ today. And I have a gift for you. On your way out this morning, the greeters are going to be handing these out. I invite you to take one per family, but I have these books that have been really transformative for me, and it just says, My Heart Cries Home. And it's a reminder of how Christ wants to come in and to dwell with you, to live in you, to overcome all that is holding you back in those dark corners of your lives that you haven't let him into yet. Christ wants in. So I'd invite you on your way out this morning, grab one of those per family and read it this week. Read it with your kids. Read it with your grandkids. Read it with a friend and talk about it and say, here's an area, here's a room of my house that I haven't let Christ into yet. That's my challenge for you this week. As you march toward Christmas, just a few days away, I want to invite the band back up to help us close. And we sang this song earlier. We heard about Bethlehem in these scriptures, but this song is not ultimately about Bethlehem. Maybe you caught it earlier. This song sings, where meek souls still receive him, the dear Christ enters in. And we'll sing these words in a moment about how we ask Jesus to be born in us today. As you sing these words, don't let them be an old Christmas hymn that, oh yeah, we sing this every year. Let this be a prayer from your heart to Christ saying, God, I want you to rule and reign and to move in and make my heart your true home. Are you with me, church? Stand to your feet. Let's worship together.